this is Hawkissimo, and in this video we're going to be talking about Isis, the Egyptian goddess of magic. Again, my videos are designed for the casual player who's primarily focused on Clash, Arena, Joust, and Siege. These are not conquest builds. They're designed for players who are just learning the particular god, probably because they have the free god rotation, and this is one of the god sets in there, although I will be doing others in that series. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Of course, the best way to get used to one of the gods is to ensure that you've gone into the ability builder here and customized the sequence that each of these abilities advances. Don't rely on the default. Those were established way long ago, and as the meta is constantly evolving, as every patch has some sort of god change as well as item changes, and then seasons introduce map changes and big reworks, we want to make sure that we're staying current with all of those things. So the item builder. So I'm not going to spend too much time discussing the order because you can simply see it above, but I will mention that I have you starting with Wind Gust. Wind Gust is really easy to hit, which is nice. You do get 4 individual gusts of wing as she's flying and flapping her wings. So as you're leveling that, don't think of it as 20 points per level. It's really 80 if you hit all 4 hits, plus you're getting your movement speed buff, which you can use both to retreat and attack or progress, all while doing that damage. So that's going to be how I have you starting your level. It's primarily your minion clear. Then we move on to Spirit Ball. This is one of the most annoying abilities that's in the game. It hits surprisingly hard, plus it has a stun on it. You can see that you get bonus damage if it gets to its maximum range. You simply hit the X again to pop the Spirit Ball whenever you want, so you get your choice on where to detonate that ball, and it will impact everybody within 10 units of where that goes on. So very nifty ability. And then I have you coming back to Wind Gust. Again, very nice, and because again it's all targets in that range, that's why it's your primary minion clear. Finally, we go on to Dispel Magic. I don't have you spending too much time with Dispel Magic. You can see that after you pick it up at 4th level, we ignore it till 15th level when we sort of finish it out, of course, with our ultimate at level 17. But don't sleep on this. It is a way for you to drop slow. It is a way for you to either buff or debuff the magical protection, depending on whether you're casting out on an ally or an enemy. And it's a silence, and there's nothing more annoying for somebody to have to contend with than silence when they want to cast an ability. So while everybody wants to cast their abilities, this is particularly annoying to mages. So it is something that once you get the practice of using it, you can consider putting a 2nd level in it to increase the silence duration, or maybe even a 3rd level. But while you're getting used to the god, I want you to go with the progression that we have. Finally, her ultimate. The thing to keep in mind for your allies, hopefully they're on mic with you, is you want to remind them that damage is building up the charge in it, and that charge is helping both the healing that your allies will get when you cause it to burst or the time runs out, as well as the damage. And you can see that damage scales as you increase the level. So all very nifty. Her passive is also interesting because you're giving HP 5 and MP 5. In other words, the additional health and mana every 5 seconds. And so it's 2 per stack whenever a player dies, and that's enemy or ally. And you can get up to 10 stacks, so that's 20 for both. So you really, once you get those stacks, your team should be doing a better job of being cognizant of the buff that you're giving them and really help provide peel and body block for you appropriately. All right, into the item builder. I'm going to give you A build and a B build. The A build is going to be a little bit more selfish, as always, probably the better one to use when you're solo queuing and or just getting used to the god. And then the B build is a little bit more team oriented and just an alternative way to play and shows you some flexibility in how you can approach builds. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. So I'm not going to read off and show you each of one of these, but I will name them as we go through. We're going to go top to bottom, left to right in the build sequence, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, the sequence for the A build. So we have Sands of Time as the starter item. We go into Penetration Boots, and then we pick up our consumables. Since you rotate back to Fountain much more frequently in Clash, in Siege, in Joust, and in Arena, you have a lot more opportunity to fill a chalice. But you know, if you don't want a chalice and you want to save some money and just buy individual health potions, nothing wrong with that. And then down into the core. Bancroft's talent gives a lot of bang for your buck. You know, you have 100 power, you have the 20% lifesteal, and then as you take more damage, both of those increase in their efficiency. So in my impression, that item is undercost right now, and you know, gives you a lot of bang for your buck, particularly early in your build. Then we go on to a flat pen item, 80 power, 20 pen, gives you 10% cooldown. Combined with your Sands of Time, you're now at 20% cooldown. Very nice. Lets you cast all those annoying abilities that we just talked about much more rapidly. Then I have you going into a defense item. Again, you have Sustain through your passive because you're getting that as well. So getting a piece of armor to reduce all damage that's coming in is great. And I think this cloak is the most versatile of all the healing or all the protection items, particularly when combined with the sustain that your HP5 and MP5 have. So by all means, think about picking up this cloak. Plus it has another 10% cooldown, which means that you're casting your two most annoying abilities every 7 seconds, because they had 10 to start. You're at 30% cooldown. There we go. Finally, I have you going into the Rod of Tahuti for the big power spike as the 5th item. And before we go into flex picks, let's talk about our relics. So I've listed 4 here. The first 2 are very common. You'll see them. I don't think there's any character within the game that doesn't benefit by having these 2 relics as a more selfish pick. Very strong, very viable in all game modes. If you want to be a bit more supporty, both of these are good, particularly this item, and I'm just going to pop it because I can't even remember what it's called, Bracer of Undoing. Bracer of Undoing, excuse me for the cough, has a cooldown reduction, and the mana time is being increased with patch 4.10. So, I'm sorry, yeah, 4.10. So it's still a week away for console, but I think that this makes this item much more viable than it has been. It's also sneaky because it's instantly reducing your cooldown time by 3 seconds, and since you already have fast cooldown times, excuse me again, it brings those abilities to bear almost immediately. So certainly worth consideration. Okay, into the flex picks. You know, 9 times out of 10 you should be going into this penetration item. It's percentage pen. It is the single most efficient thing at stripping objectives, those being towers, phoenixes, the big objective monsters, whether it's Apotheosis or the Fire Giant or the Gold Fury or any other weirdo creature that's out there, plus the Titan. So very important for pushing endgame. Plus, it will help you punch through the natural protections that all gods have as they progress in level, and beat down those tanks who have built additional armor. So that brings us through the A build. Now I'm going to deselect these items and come down to talk about the B build. This is one of those rare times where you can build the penetration boots, but I'm actually going to recommend that you buy the blue boots, the cooldown boots for the B build. So I'm going to just delete this here, come down to utility, go to movement, and pick up Shoes of Focus. So you'll still start with Sands of Time, you'll still get Shoes of Focus, you'll come across, you know, your relic choices at 1st and 12th level or whatever you make of them. And again, there's still that Bracer of Undoing was what I had here. So any of those are good. But then we come down to this relic line. And again, when you're in the store, you'll see all 5 lines of this. So that's the advantage of setting up this template exactly as I see it. This is a more utility-based version of Isis. Afterwards, I'll show you that her power scaling, actually, you know what, we'll just do it right now. If you look at her abilities, you see 40% power scaling here, 70% on Spirit Ball, nothing here, and 50 on the damage and 25% on the healing. So she doesn't have great power scalings. So power is not the only way that you can go with all mages, and that's something to think about, and that's reflected in the B build. Instead, what I have is utility. I have you getting cooldown and things that are annoying. So here we go right into Chronos Pendant, which is very odd for me. I don't generally suggest it early in a build, but again, you're at max cooldown by your 3rd item. That's just a terror. Every 6 seconds you're going to be able to do your Wing Gust and your Spirit Ball. It's horrible lockdown and horrible damage that you're spitting out. Plus you have your passive giving your HP 5, MP 5, and this item giving you back mana, and your starting item giving you back mana. You really have massive lane sustain via this. And then these next 2 items are really around what they bring to your team fight. So Gem of Isolation adds a slow effect to all of your abilities that are doing damage. So that's annoying and provides another form of CC that you're popping out there in and above the stun and slows that you're doing. So that's real nice. This is under the penetration tree and strips down people's healing. So let's look at this for a second because people sleep on Divine Ruin. But it's 80 power, it's 10 flat pen, and is giving you the same equivalent that Brawler's Beak Stick does for magical people. So you're getting a 40% reduction to the enemy heals for 8 seconds, which is an eternity, on your 2 abilities that are ridiculously easy to hit, your Wing Gust and your Spirit Ball. Very, very strong utility. And keep in mind that that's all healing, whether it's through their abilities, whether it's through their items, whether it's through potions, whether it's through relics. So very powerful, very annoying. Finally, I have the next slot, I have you going into some defense. You don't want to die. And this is the point where, oddly, I'm ready to have you sell your starter item to help fund this, because otherwise you'd be overcapping your cooldown. But here we're maintaining the 40% cooldown. So just something to keep in mind. You know, it's not the end of the world because the starter item still has 20 power and it's still giving you back mana, but you are going over the 40% hard cap in the max cooldown, which, by the way, you can see in the right-hand column. The 3rd section is utility. The 2nd item is cooldown, and you see the 40, and then you see the brackets that have the 40. Those are hard cap numbers that are true up and down the board, so always keep in mind the hard caps that are there. This also has a passive on it, so it's 60 physical, 60 magical protection, 10% cooldown, and then its passive says when you get below, I believe it's 35% health, you throw out a little shockwave that stuns everybody who's near you. So again, you're seeing a lot of CC, a lot of control and annoying effects that you're bringing to your team and your team fight capabilities. And then finally, your flex pick is going to be something up here. So by all means, if you guys need the penetration to help rip down structures, there's nothing wrong with that. Your abilities do damage. Don't feel bad about picking that up. You know, if you have a lot of magicals, getting this item that has power, has magical defense, and lowers people's magical protection if they're close by is nice, particularly if you have one or two other magical folks, so other mages and other guardians. That's a nice team pick. Hey, your ultimate has healing on it, so the Rod of Acephalus gives you power, gives you 10% move speed, gives you some health, and it improves the healing in and out of combat, so 10% out of combat, 20% in combat, so it makes your ultimate that much better. And then Gauntlet of Thebes. I think Gauntlet of Thebes is a great item and combines very well with the Cloak because it gives 20 physical, 20 magical to yourself and your allies, plus you're getting the 15 HP 5 and the 350 health. And health combined with armor makes you have a greater effective health because you're reducing damage that's coming in while having a better, let's think of it as a battery of health. Plus, it gives versatility. So if they have penetration, they're reducing your armor. If they have things like Quinn's size that are doing extra damage based on your health, you know, here we're stacking the two things together. So with that said, I've given you two different ways to build Isis that I think will both be fun and effective and let you really shine with this goddess who is on the free rotation cycle. I hope you find this information useful and helpful and shows you some of the thought process behind the items and the sequence that we advance the abilities, and helps you play mages better overall, but Isis in particular. If you did find this useful, please click the like button. Feel free to subscribe. In fact, I encourage you to subscribe. I will be continuing this series. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and fill them out below, and I'll do my best to get back to you in a timely manner. I gave a link to my Twitter, and I also do post on Reddit, so feel free to check those out as well. Thank you very much. This is Hawkissimo signing out.